Well, what is the number one step for building a music school up to 2,000 students? What's the number one thing that you need to do? What's the first step that you will take? Well, before I tell you what that is, I want to tell you a quick little story. Now, when I was a young person, I used to love that story about David and Goliath. You know, everyone pretty much knows it, right? A little shepherd boy who was tending sheep, who had a slingshot and had to fight this big giant called Goliath. And, you know, this battle was important because basically each side said, we'll send one person forward, and whoever wins, well, the other side will be slaves to the other side, as the story goes. And no one wanted to fight Goliath because he was, I don't know, 9 foot tall and looked big and scary and had big armor and big sword and helmet and everything. And no one steps forward, and so this battle was at a stalemate for a long time. And then this little shepherd boy called David comes along, and he's got a slingshot, and he ends up stepping up, you know, saying, I don't need any of this armor. And he slingshots and takes Goliath down, and as the story goes, knocks him down, cuts off his head, wins the war, and the other side become, you know, the slaves to his side. So when I was a young person hearing that story, I always just sort of imagined like David just with this little sling, you know, like some sort of kind of toy almost, because I used to play with like slingshots. Even me and my sisters would, you know, make these little slings and fling them at, you know, trees or whatever, just having a bit of fun as you do when you're a kid. And I never really thought that there was any sort of real precision or training around that. But I was reading the book called David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, you know, a New York Times best-selling author. You've probably heard of him, written amazing books. And he goes into this massive detail in history about these people, I don't know what you call them, slingsmen, slingshotmen, whatever. And he says that they were actually super highly trained at using these slings, that they could, you know, take out the flame on a candle, they could split a hair, all that to say that they had incredible precision and training. And so that story of David and Goliath, we often think that it's just this shepherd boy that kind of fluked it and, you know, was able to take down this giant. But the truth is, he accomplished this amazing, incredible task because he actually had the training. He actually was prepared for that moment. And so the number one secret for actually building a massive music school with 2,000 students, or any music school with hundreds or thousands or whatever, actually starts with having the actual initial training and being really skilled at what you do, right? And so when I started, many of you will be a much better musician than me, but I was a really great drummer and I was a really great music teacher. And so everything that I built off that has had that foundation, that training, that skill set of just being really good at what you do. And so for some of you, you need to really think carefully. If my school or my teaching business is not growing, well, maybe you need to look at yourself first. Am I a really great musician? And am I a really great teacher? And what am I actually doing to improve those two things? No matter how big your school gets, how big your team gets, you have to keep improving your teaching level, your performance level, your instrument training forever, basically. People want to always look up to someone that is actually progressing and achieving and is just highly skilled at those things. So that is the key secret. Now, one of the ways you can work on this is that you can actually do, you know, teaching observations. So I myself, with our team, I will sit in on lessons and I will actually have we've got a big training document that our BAM squad gets as well. And it walks everyone through our assessment of our teachers. And we assess everything. And we assess it from right down from like how they greet students and acknowledge the parents. Did they know the parents' names? Did they know anything about the student? You know, did they know that they had soccer in the weekend? Hey, how was your soccer game? And then right down to how was their lesson planning? Was it obvious? How did they ladder or scaffold ideas in their teaching? How did they wrap up the lesson? You know, all those sorts of things. How did they prepare the homework? And so we walk all our tutors through these big observations and we think through every detail because we need people that are teachable, humble, and prepared to work on things and develop where they need developing. And so if you are just teaching on your own, well, the easiest way to do this, and first of all, you've got to be humble enough to do it, is to actually just film yourself in a lesson. So you just say to the student, hey, would you mind if I film today's lesson so I can just watch it back, give myself some feedback? And then you go through and you watch every part. And for many of you, it's going to be a really horrible process. I know the first time I did it, it was just, oh, it felt so cringeworthy. Is that really how I sound? Is that how that came across? You know? But you get to see everything from that third perspective. And so I encourage you to do that if you're on your own. If you've got a small team, then you observe each other, you give tips, but ultimately you need to create that culture where everyone is teachable. They want to learn. They're okay with having feedback. And if you're not humble, if you just think you've got it all going on and you're amazing, chances are you're never going to build a massive, successful teaching business because you are cocky, arrogant, and not teachable. And that is one of the biggest skills that you need because you don't know everything. And so you need that first of all for yourself, and then you need to impart that to your team. And there's no greater way to impart it to your team than to actually ask them to assess you. And so I encourage you to do that. So the number one secret for building a massive music school, the first step that you would take is to really have the skills down, to be like the David who's not just pottering around with a little sling toy. He's actually a highly skilled slingsman, and he knows what he's doing. So are you a highly skilled musician and a highly skilled music teacher? So there's the challenge for today. So have a think about how this impacts you, what you need to work on, and if you need some extra great resources around being a great teacher, building a great music teaching business, then you need to, if you're not there already, head over to buildamusicschool.com. Grab heaps of the free resources, grab the weekly vlog, and think about joining the BAM squad for all the other amazing bonuses. There we go. Hope that helps you today, and I'll see you in the next video.